Rock, a member of the Army's Old Guard. And yes, he's now a member of Congress from the 4th Congressional District in Arkansas. Congressman Tom Cotton, I hope you are going to get home for a 4th of July celebration.
Good evening, Hugh. It's great to join you. Yes, we are out of congressional session all week long.
Are fireworks still allowed in Arkansas? They're not much allowed out here, so.
Well, unlike California, fireworks are not just allowed in Arkansas; they are encouraged, small and large alike.
On a very somber note, tragedy in Arkansas, in Arizona yesterday with the loss of life of 19 firefighters. Tom Cotton, and as a ranger, I know you guys are used to going into harm's way, into the hot spots, and it must feel like losing one of your own, even though it's a different branch of the public service. It's nevertheless people who go in harm's way to protect other people.
Yes, it was a terrible tragedy. So many firefighters lost their life yesterday in Arizona. But as you say, it's something that they volunteered to do, and they died doing their duty, just like so many soldiers or law enforcement officers here do. So while we mourn their loss, we should also all be thankful for their sacrifice and service and celebrate their memory as well.
I am not giving out yet any suggestions to anyone on where to donate to help these families of the fallen, because I'm just not sure which is the right group yet, but we'll do that all week long. I'm wondering, as a veteran of these wars, if these July 4th, Tom Cotton, hit you in a particular way, or if you remember fallen comrades, or if there's a special ritual you have that goes with this.
Well, on the 4th of July, I always try to take time to read the Declaration of Independence, since that's what we're celebrating, the day that we declared our independence from Great Britain. You know, each of the country's patriotic holidays I try to celebrate in different ways. You know, the 4th of July is the reason we fight. Memorial Day a few weeks ago is a time to remember those who did give the last full measure, as Lincoln would say, in defense of those ideas overseas. And then Veterans Day later in the fall is the time to thank all those veterans who made it back alive and without whom we would not be able to live in freedom and celebrate on the 4th of July as we will on Thursday.
Now, it's interesting because Arkansas was the western part of the Confederacy, right?
It was, yes.
This is the 150th anniversary of the end of the siege of Vicksburg, which severed the Confederacy in half. I'm just curious if the sesquicentennial celebrations of the Civil War are different, because Arkansas doesn't really figure in the Civil War. I know it sent a lot of people to it, but were there any significant battles fought on Arkansas soil?
There were some. The Battle of Tea Ridge in northern Arkansas is one of the most prominent, but, you know, that's something that I knew about as an Arkansas schoolboy growing up. It's not like, obviously, the Battle of Gettysburg or Vicksburg or First or Second Bull Run, given the fact that we were on the periphery of the war and not right in the heart of it, as, say, Virginia was.
Are you a student of Civil War history?
Not nearly a good a student as I should be, but that's probably true about most topics. I mean, I do try to read broadly both about the Civil War battles, but also the political and philosophical debates leading up to the Civil War in the 1840s and 50s, because I think those are always with us and they touch fundamental questions of justice.
Congressman Cotton listens to this program via podcast when he's out doing his 1 mile runs. He's not really a distance guy. But this week you listen, because we're going to have Jeff Shara, who writes great Civil War novels, whose father wrote Killer Angels. We're going to have Rich Lowry, of course, the great Larry Arnn talking about Lincoln, and we're going to have Victor Davis Hanson talking about Savior Generals, his new book. And so I think you got a lot of great podcasts to relax with down there this weekend. But when you come back next week, Congressman, you're going to come back to a meeting of the House Republican Conference, allegedly on July the 10th, having to do with immigration. And my question is, what do you think of the Senate bill, and what do you think is going to happen in the House?
I think the Senate bill is fundamentally and irretrievably flawed because it adopts the following structure: amnesty first and enforcement second, maybe. I don't think any such bill can pass the House, and I think that's what the vast majority of House Republicans will communicate to our leadership and to each other when we have our special meeting on immigration on July 10th. At this point, because Harry Reid and Dick Durbin and Charles Schumer and Barack Obama have all said that they will not accept any kind of immigration bill that does not immediately legalize the 12 million illegal immigrants who are in our country, regardless of the lack of security on our border, the need for a fence, the need for more internal improvement, it is, I think, unlikely that we will be able to pass the kind of immigration reform that our country needs.
Yeah, I just got done talking to Trey Gowdy, who's the Judiciary Committee's chair on immigration and border security, about the fence. And you brought up the fence. And I wrote in the Washington Examiner today, I just don't understand. I really don't. I know you're a freshman. You've only been there a half a year. But why aren't the obvious things done? And Tom Cotton, there's nothing more obvious than the need to do a lot more double-layered fencing with access roads on the southern border, and the Senate bill didn't do it.
That's exactly right, Hugh. Israel, for instance, just built a new fence about 160 miles along their border with Egypt and the Sinai to stop this exact problem, illegal immigration coming from Africa in their case. And it stopped border crossings from 2,000 a month down to 2 per month. Fences work. If fences did not work, Barack Obama wouldn't have a fence around the White House. He'd have all kind of fancy technology. But once you build a fence, it doesn't ask for higher pay. It doesn't ask for time off. It doesn't need to go into collective bargaining negotiations with the employer. It's not subject to future defunding. It just sits there in the heat and the cold and the rain and the snow and protects our borders.
And so given that, and then they say, well, we don't know where we need it, but you can always over-authorize and then under-construct upon a showing that it's not necessary. These are not hard problems to solve. So why is it that so many people resist building the fence, Tom Cotton?
Well, Hugh, I think the obvious answer is they don't want one.
Yep.
If they wanted one, it would be very simple. You would just say, notwithstanding any other provisional law, a fence is going to be built here, and it's going to look like this. And you'd have a map, and you'd have pictures. And that's a very simple law to write. And when you don't have that kind of law, it's clear that you had very smart lawyers who were trying to write a law in a way that suggested they wanted a fence, but in fact won't produce one, which is exactly what we had from the 2006 Fencing Act.
Well, now, I had Senator Hoeven, who's a very good conservative, on last week, and people get mad when I say that because he's got his name on this amendment. But he is. He's a very good conservative. But he's an MBA, Tom Cotton. He's not a lawyer. I've begun to wonder whether or not your colleagues actually know how courts apply the statutes they write. Has this question occurred to you?
Oh, it certainly has occurred to me. If you look at the history of the Endangered Species Act, the Clean Air Act, or the Clean Water Act, and the way that's been abused by courts and the extreme environmental left to stop growth that's needed in the country.
Tom Cotton, hang on for one more second. Let me take an extra segment today. TomCotton.com, America, to find out what the congressman's up to. When we come back, we're going to talk to him about what his colleague is up to when we return to the Hugh Hewitt Show. Hour at HughHewitt.com or on Twitter, # Hugh Hewitt. And Congressman Cotton, last week on this program, your colleague on the House Financial Services Committee, John Campbell, surprised a lot of people by announcing he would not be seeking re-election, laid out his rules, laid out his reasons why, and they're very persuasive. He got a lot of reaction to that. What was your reaction to learning that?
I was surprised that John announced his retirement. It was unexpected by me, certainly. I was disappointed because he is one of the smartest and hardest working members of the Republican caucus, and I only hope that he's not been driven into retirement by the unruly freshman he has on the Monetary Policy Subcommittee.
That would be you?
Yes.
But, what does alarm me is that Congress has become very frustrating to people. And I just worry. I hope we find a combat veteran, by the way, who wants to come out here and take a look at his seat at least. There are a lot of good people going to run for that, and some of them are my friends like Mimi Walters. But I think we need more combat veterans of the war to at least look at these things. But do you fear that people are just going to say, I'm done with this institution, nothing happens here?
Well, that happens in each cycle from time to time. People are frustrated with the slow pace of change in Congress, and I'm certainly frustrated at the slow pace of change given that my background is predominantly in the Army and specifically in combat when things move very quickly and you can accomplish a great deal in a short amount of time. But the Congress is a site for deliberation from all walks of life and all parts of the country, and we have to realize that, we didn't get to the problems that we have today overnight, and we're not going to be able to solve them overnight as well. And just like a combat unit hands off responsibility for its region after a certain period of time of deployment and trust the next person to do the job well, I'm disappointed that John is going to be leaving, but hopefully we'll elect another good conservative in that seat to carry on the work that John has been doing.
And then finally, if you can give me an update on Senator Mark Pryor in Arkansas. I know you haven't decided whether or not to take him on. That's not my question. My question is, did he vote for the immigration bill?
Yes, like every other Democrat in the Senate, he voted for it.
And how's that playing in Arkansas?
Well, the polling I've seen suggests that it's 2-1 against the kind of amnesty now, enforcement later structure of the bill. But the good thing about politics is there's always a reckoning every 2 years, and we'll have a robust debate about who has the right plans for immigration reform in the country, and we'll let the Arkansas voters make that decision next November.
Did I miss any announcements?
No, there's been no announcements for me, but as a member of Congress, I'm sure I'll be voting on an immigration measure soon enough.
Okay, I've been gone on 3 weeks. I just wanted to make sure I missed Campbell getting ready to land the plane, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss Cotton taking off. So I didn't do that, did I?
No, just still working away, trying to serve the people of Arkansas in the House.
All right, Congressman Tom Cotton, you have a wonderful 4th of July, my friend. Always a pleasure talking to you. Don't go anywhere, America. Stick right here on this great radio station, HughHewitt.com. Follow me on Twitter @Hugh Hewitt. And, of course,